Senator from California.
Mr. President, I have a few remarks to respond to my colleagues' remarks, and then I would ask immediately, they're not going to be long, and immediately followed by Senator Blumenthal, if that's okay, and then back to the
if I would have objection to that request if I'm not able to respond to the comments that she makes to my response.
Okay, I'll withdraw. It's fine. I'll just have the Senator ask me to yield for a question, and I'll give him his time that way. Thank you. Mr. President, my colleague from Oklahoma came down. First of all, he talks about Obamacare. He forgets the fact that there's millions and millions and millions of Americans who now have insurance, the same kind of insurance he has as a United States Senator, and I have as a United States Senator. But he forgets the fact, number one, that we have seen more people insured than in modern history. He conveniently forgets that fact. He forgets the fact there's no limits on coverage. Insurance companies can't cancel your health insurance. He talks about children with great eloquence, and he's, I'm sure, just a fantastic parent. But he forgets the fact that 17 million more children are insured. Pretty important point. But I really have to take offense at some of my colleagues' remarks. He says, he makes an eloquent point about states' rights. He finishes his argument about Obamacare saying, don't have the federal government tell my state what to do. Well, in essence, Obamacare doesn't do that. You have an exchange. But yes, we do require people to get insurance. That's true, and that comes from a Republican governor named Mitt Romney's plan. But then he says, leave my state alone. But yet he wants to take away a woman's right to choose an abortion. He wants to do that. He thinks the federal government should do that. So he makes an eloquent point about states' rights, but he, as a senator who doesn't believe in abortion, that's his total right. I respect it. I would defend it. He basically says he wants to decide for everybody in the country that they shouldn't be able to have an abortion because he doesn't approve of that. What makes his opinion more important than mine? It isn't. This is America. We all have different views about when life begins, about Roe v. Wade, but yet he stands here and uses rhetoric that I say is irresponsible. That's my opinion. It's my opinion, not his. Now, the senator started off his discussion and said the truth, that he has a beautiful wife and a beautiful family. Well, I want the senator to know I have a handsome husband and a beautiful family. Okay? So he has a beautiful wife and a beautiful family. I have a handsome husband and a beautiful family. What the heck does that have to do with anything else? We're both parents. I'm a grandparent. I gave birth. What does that have to do with this conversation? The fact of the matter is, it's not about your beautiful family, my beautiful family. It's about the beautiful families out there who, A, need insurance, and who, B, will make their own decision in America about when life begins, who will make their own decision in America as to whether they support Roe versus Wade. And then my friend says that someone in his family survived cancer, and thank God. I've had friends who survived it. I've had friends who have died from it, and family members as well. This conversation has nothing to do with our lives personally. It has to do with the other lives that we impact when we say we're going to take away health care from 3 million Americans who get it from Planned Parenthood. Now, my friend lectures us. He's done this before. He and I have gone at this before. It's fine. He talks about his deep feelings about how he is against abortion at any stage. Then why doesn't he come down here? After all his rhetoric, I listened to it. I'm offended by it, frankly. Why doesn't he come down here and write a law that says it's a crime to have an abortion and you should go to jail? That's what he's basically saying if you listen to his rhetoric, the words he used. No, he doesn't do that. I checked his legislative record. He just wants to defund organizations that are operating under complete legality, under Roe v. Wade, the law of the land. So, abortion's been legal since 1973. The senator doesn't agree with it. I have total respect for that. But if you think it's a crime, then go ahead and instead of coming here and giving these speeches about those of us who happen to believe it's up to a woman to decide these issues, you really basically say we're advocating a crime. And that is offensive. I would never say that to my friend. Never. And then, of course, the whole party over there is attacking an organization that is operating legally under the law. 97% of what they do is breast cancer screenings, STD screenings, cervical cancer screenings, saving people's lives. I've met them. I've looked them in the eye. I know what I'm talking about. So if you don't think the 3% of the work Planned Parenthood does, which is absolutely connected to reproductive health, the 3%, then come down and say it's a crime. But I bet none of my friends would do that. Because if I went to my people and I said, Republicans think you should go to jail if you had an abortion, or go to jail if you take contraception, and some of them feel that way, not all of them, they would really be in trouble at the polls. So it is, when you make these verbal attacks on people who don't agree with you, sir, your words matter. Your words matter. They have an impact. You're here because you're eloquent. Your words have an impact. And if what you want to have happen is put people in jail for performing a legal procedure, come down here and do that. But don't come down here and say what you think is a crime and then say, therefore, we're going to defund an organization that is operating illegally. Now, my friend from the other side of the aisle may not like it, but 3 million people count on Planned Parenthood. And his approach is an attack on those 3 million people. More than, I guess, I don't know how many people live in Oklahoma, but I would assume it's fewer than that, perhaps. And this obsession with repealing Obamacare, despite the fact that is helping so many people, is of epic proportions. We've seen a repeal over there in the House 52 times. And I wonder if my friend wanted to yield, me to yield for a question, or is he going to wait for a response? So, Mr. President, just to sum it all up, it is offensive to hear someone describe what is the law of the land as a criminal act. It is, as a crime. But more than that, if that's what you believe, and I respect your right to believe it, then come up here and do what you really want to do. Overturn Roe v. Wade, tell women of America they have no right to choose anymore. That's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. You want to make it a crime? Make it a crime. Make it a crime. That's honest. What is dishonest is to attack an organization that is acting within the law, which is helping 3 million people. And I would say that is what this debate is about. And I just hope the Murray Amendment passes today. It will send a strong signal. And if it doesn't pass, we know this bill is going to be vetoed because this president understands that this government is not the be-all and end-all. We are not the moral voice of the universe. We are not. People don't even like us as an institution. Let them make up their own minds in their own homes, with their own God, with their own family, and I support them, whatever their decision is. Whether they are pro-choice, whether they are anti-choice, I will fight for their right to decide for their own selves, but I will not force my view on somebody else. And that's what being pro-choice means, that you are willing to understand there are difficult issues, and I don't have every answer, and the senator from Oklahoma doesn't have an answer. It's called humility. I don't have the answer. I will trust my constituents to make that decision. And I just hope that we will stop this attack on Planned Parenthood. If this is really about a woman's right to choose, let's have that debate. You want to call it a crime, which I've heard on this floor, then put your bill out there. Tell people they're committing a crime. Put them in jail. Do that. We'll have the debate. We'll win that debate, but we'll have that debate. But don't go after organizations who are acting completely within the law. And with that, Mr. President, I would yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Wyoming.
I'd yield such time as the senator from Oklahoma needs to respond to that.
Mr. President,
Senators are reminded that they will refer to each other in the third person. Senator from Oklahoma.
Thank you, Mr. President. That was actually the first thing I was going to say, is that I want to refer back to Senate rules, that we're to address the president rather than each other through this time period, and I appreciate the president acknowledging that, according to Senate rules. My simple statement today was not intended to be offensive. In fact, I think if I went back through the transcript of what I said, I'm looking for what was offensive rhetoric that was stated multiple times by the senator from California. As I try to think back through what was offensive rhetoric of me saying that children have 10 fingers and 10 toes and unique DNA and a unique fingerprint, doesn't seem to be offensive. I think also if the president went back through the legislative record, I never talked about criminalizing anything. I heard multiple times through a conversation or on the floor that I was criminalizing. I actually was speaking out for millions of children each year that die. And to say, would we not want to reconsider the new science that has been available in America for decades now? To look inside the womb and to be able to see 10 fingers and 10 toes, unique DNA, and a fingerprint different than the mom or the dad, and understand we have a basic principle as Americans. It's a life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's a unique value. Even the Supreme Court, when they ruled on Roe versus Wade, talked about viability. And current science continues to press on what is viable. As a friend of mine delivered last year, a little girl that was 14 ounces. 14 ounces. That little girl is a healthy little girl now, over a year old, continuing and doing fine. 1973, that child would not have been viable. It's very much a child. She's beautiful. And as for this whole conversation about millions of people losing insurance if Obamacare goes away, and don't I care about millions of people and their insurance, the issue is not millions of people being covered. There are other ways to be able to help millions of Americans. As I acknowledged when I spoke, there are real issues in healthcare delivery in America. And there are significant issues that continue to this day. My simple statement was, those issues get larger and larger. And my concern is, while individuals would stand up and say we have millions of people covered, they ignore a 35% increase of premiums in my state. They ignore the reality of a growing copay in my state, that people are forced by law to buy a product that they cannot actually afford to use. My simple statement is, can we not acknowledge, not that there are not millions of people newly covered, but we have millions of people that now have a coverage they cannot use and cannot afford to keep, and yet they're compelled by law to do it. In fact, they become criminals if they don't buy the health care coverage required by law. These are real issues. And they really do need dialogue. Good civil dialogue, I think, will help us be able to work these things out and centering in on the facts. With that, Mr. President, I yield back.